Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Catch, Hook, and Shoot. It's the weekend of September 9th, 2018. Anybody checking out the show on YouTube probably noticed that there's no video this week. The reason for that, I've been sick most of the week, so honestly look like crap right now, so just didn't feel like going on camera. But anyway, yeah, apparently there was some kind of virus being passed around at All In and StarCast last weekend, because I saw online quite a few people came down with the same thing I've got. Seems to be just like a chest cold or whatever, but it's all good. Definitely worth it. But hope everybody's enjoying the show. Hope you're checking it out on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. Hope everybody's following on social media, on Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter. And if anybody ever wants to drop an email, it's catchhookshoot@gmail.com. Not going to be a very long show this week, just because, like I said, I'm not feeling well at all, but definitely wanted to get a show posted here. And the big thing coming out of WWE this week on Raw was the segment with Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. It seems to be, at least that the rumor mill is saying that they're setting up for Shawn Michaels to come out of retirement to have one or two more matches. Apparently the opponents that WWE wants to set up for him is The Undertaker, obviously, and AJ Styles. Both of those should be fantastic matches if it is actually true that they're going to have him come out of retirement. I honestly don't know how I feel about this one, because Shawn Michaels has always been the one guy that stayed true to his word, as he always says, stayed true to his word, stayed retired, doesn't retire then come back, retire then come back, retire then come back. So like I said, it'd be great to see him in the ring one more time. I'm sure he's still as good as ever, but I don't know. It's kind of mixed feelings for me on that one. But, I have no doubt that either one of those matches would be fantastic. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens on that one. Some other news coming out of Raw. Of course, the Shield took another beatdown from Strowman, McIntyre, and Ziggler, as well as a bunch of guys from the back, including Kevin Owens. I don't have the whole list of guys that were out there, but just took a pretty good beating from everybody on the heel side of Raw. So they're definitely trying to set up the Shield as the baby faces in this one. They're really trying hard to get Strowman over as a heel. Still not sure how well it's working. He's still getting a lot of cheers from the crowd. Have to see how this one is going to play out. And of course, Ziggler and McIntyre won the Raw Tag Team titles from the B Team this past week. Not too much of a surprise there. Like I said, the B Team was pretty much a comedy act, and so those type of wrestlers typically don't hold championships for very long. I think it was good for the B Team to have that little bit of a title run. It definitely elevated them. Definitely got the fans behind them. The fans definitely were taking to them pretty well. So I have to see what's next for them. As far as the SmackDown side, the big story there is Daniel Bryan and Brie Bella and the Miz and Maurice. Obviously, Daniel Bryan has re-signed with WWE. According to the rumors, it's a multi-year deal, so he's probably not going anywhere anytime soon. I know that disappoints a lot of indie fans who were hoping to see him back in Ring of Honor, hoping to see him in New Japan, maybe having some dealings with the Bullet Club, with Cody, Kenny Omega, a lot of dream matches with indie guys out there. So apparently that's not going to be happening anytime soon. Definitely a disappointment for indie fans, but definitely a good day for WWE fans in that respect. The big story this week has been WWE put out a list of their top 10 factions, and I know this kind of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. They listed the Shield as the #1 faction of all time, and this just caused a lot of backlash among the internet wrestling community, myself included. I mean, when you have a list that includes factions like the Four Horsemen, D-Generation X, the NWO, the Freebirds, the Hart Foundation, and you put the Shield above all of these guys, it just it's honestly, it's kind of insulting to wrestling fans. It insults our intelligence. I mean, had it been a list of just strictly WWE factions, you know, leave out the Freebirds, leave out the NWO, leave out the Four Horsemen, and just make it strictly WWE factions that have been around, you know, maybe they could have thrown in the Brood, they could have thrown in the Job Squad or the Union or the Ministry or things like that, you know, then okay, fine, it's just WWE kind of stroking their own ego with just strictly WWE factions. But to put the Shield ahead of, like I said, the NWO, the Horsemen, it's an insult to the fans and to those, you know, factions that kind of pave the way for groups like the Shield. And you know, I kind of put together my own top 10 list of all-time factions, and I'll tell you right now, the Shield doesn't even crack my top 10. Neither does the New Day. Neither does Evolution. You know, yeah. I mean, let me know what you guys think. Leave me some comments. You know, email, whatever. Let me know who's in your top 10. Who you know, what do you think of mine? You know, did I forget somebody, or you know, maybe I've got some. Maybe you don't think my order is quite right. But I'm gonna go through that really quickly here. First of all, number 10, I've got the Radicals. And for anybody that doesn't remember, the Radicals were a group of 4 guys who jumped ship from WCW to WWE. And those 4 guys were Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, Dean Malenko, and Chris Benoit. And, you know, they weren't together for a real long time in WWE, but the impact that they made on the business by all 4 of these guys moving, because you know, at the time they were, I wouldn't say the top guys in WCW, but Chris Benoit had just won the WCW World Championship, and literally the next day he was on Monday Night Raw. So you know, it had a huge impact, and kind of swinging the Monday Night Wars to the WWE. It was kind of the nail in the coffin for WCW. I mean, WCW was out of business within a year of these 4 guys defecting, and you know, just kind of, like I said, was the final nail in the coffin for WCW, and gave WWE some of the greatest performers they've ever had, especially in the cases of Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. Of course, there was, you know, that iconic moment at the end of WrestleMania when Benoit won the World Heavyweight Championship, and Guerrero at the time was the WWE champion, and it just, like I said, it was the to me the final nail in the coffin that kind of said, you know, WCW is pretty much done at this point, and that really was the case. The number 9 on my list is a faction from ECW known as the Triple Threat. Had a few different members, but I think the main group was Shane Douglas, who of course always was the leader, Chris Candido, and Bam Bam Bigelow. You know, these were the guys that kind of ran the show in ECW there for a while. Shane Douglas, of course, longtime ECW World Heavyweight Champion, first ECW World Heavyweight Champion, as a matter of fact. And yeah, just I mean, at the time, you know, pretty much everything in ECW revolved around these guys. Had some great wars with Tommy Dreamer, with the Sandman, with Taz, you know, and just one of the probably the best faction in ECW. You know, I kind of toyed with putting the Dudley Boys in there, but the Dudley Boys was really, when they were an actual faction, when they had a lot of members, again, was kind of like a comedy act. The Dudley Boys really kind of came into their own when it came down to Bubba Ray and Devon, and they were the ones that dominated the tag team scene in ECW for so long. So the Dudley Boys to me were more of a tag team than they were a faction. Next on my list, number 8, is one that's really kind of underrated, but when you look at the members of this faction, you can't deny the amount of talent that was there, and I've talked about them on the show before. They just They were a WCW faction. They just kind of never got out from under the shadow of the Four Horsemen. I think that's really what kind of held them back. And I'm talking about the Dangerous Alliance, of course, headed by Paulie Dangerously, Paul Heyman. Like I said, just the sheer talent that was in this group. You had Arn Anderson, you had Larry Zbyszko, Bobby Eaton, Rick Rude, Steve Austin. I mean, this is a group that could have dominated the entire title picture in WCW. Like I said, I don't think they ever got out from under the shadow of the Horsemen. That's what the fans were used to seeing, was the Four Horsemen with Ric Flair and Arn Anderson and whoever else might have been in the group at the time. But, the Dangerous Alliance, had they been used properly, positioned properly, I think could have, been the ones to carry WCW into the Monday Night Wars, through the Monday Night Wars. I mean, with that group of guys, honestly, the sky was the limit. And, but of course, Paulie was let go and ended up in ECW and just took them to a whole nother level. And of course, we all know what became of Steve Austin, became the biggest star in the history of WWE. So, it's one of those groups that it's, kind of fun, but also kind of sad to look back and say what could have been with this group of guys. Next on my list, number 7, I've got the Von Erichs. Of course, ran the show in World Class Championship Wrestling back in the 80s. Nothing went on in Texas without the Von Erichs being involved. And, of course, obviously that's because Fritz Von Erich was the owner of World Class. So, of course, he's going to position his sons in the top spots there. But they were ones, they deserved those spots. I mean, Kevin, Kerry, and David were three of the best wrestlers in the NWA territories at the time. So, I mean, it's not like they didn't deserve it. And, definitely belong in any top 10 list when you're talking about factions. Next on my list at number 6, I've got the flip side of the Von Erichs, and that's the Fabulous Freebirds, Michael Hayes, Terry Bam Bam Gordy, Buddy Roberts, and of course Jimmy Garvin, kind of a fringe member of the Freebirds when they were in World Class, became a full-fledged member in WCW. But like I said, they were kind of the perfect foil to the Von Erichs. They were the ones, the Freebird Von Erich rivalry. It was World Class Championship Wrestling for a good chunk of the 1980s. So it was one of those things where, you couldn't have one without the other. The Freebirds needed that strong babyface faction to go against, and the Von Erichs needed that strong heel faction to as their rivals, and they just kind of played off of each other perfectly. Number 5, I've got the Hart Foundation, and of course, Bret Hart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Brian Pillman, British Bulldog, and Owen Hart. And their, rivalry with WWE, of course, the Canadian versus American rivalry, really just kind of helped elevate a lot of WWE stars at that time. Number 1 being Steve Austin. His rivalry with Bret Hart, just is what really kind of launched his WWE career, put him at that level, of course, as being the top babyface in WWE, and really kind of became the first, I guess you could call it, anti-hero, because he, obviously started off as a heel. Bret Hart was the babyface, and then there was that double switch that happened at WrestleMania 13, and it just kind of took off from there and became one of the greatest rivalries in the history of pro wrestling. Next on my list is a more current group, number 4, and that is the Bullet Club. Probably, really the only group on this list that was never in any of the major organizations in North America, but you can't deny the impact that they've had in Japan and on the independent circuit. I mean, look at what just happened a week ago with All In. They have to be in the discussion of any top 10 list. Started off with Prince Devitt, now known as Finn Balor, with Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, and just kind of built from there. It seems to have avoided the pitfalls that the NWO had, which was getting too big and having too many members, and that was ultimately the demise of the NWO. Was they just got too big and too many guys, and they didn't keep it with the quote-unquote elite guys of the time, and that seems to be what the Bullet Club does. I mean, now you've got guys in the Bullet Club like the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, Marty Scurll, Hangman Page, and then you've got the group that just kind of broke away from the Bullet Club that's called the Firing Squad, the kind of the Tongan contingent from the Bullet Club with Tama Tonga, Tangaloa, Haku, Bad Luck Fale, and now they've got a big rivalry going with the, I guess you could say with the Elite, as they're called, the Bucks and Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes. So, definitely belong in any, like I said, any discussion of a top 10 list. You have to at least mention the Bullet Club, and with the things that they're doing, with the impact that they've had on the independent scene and in Japan, I put them at number 4 on my list. I would, put them against any other group on this list, and I think it would be a fantastic rivalry. Getting into my top 3 here, number 3 is D-Generation X. Never a very big faction. Your core members are Shawn Michaels and Triple H. Of course, originally you also had Rick Rude and Chyna as members. Later on, they added X-Pac and the New Age Outlaws, and that was pretty much it. DX never got super huge, but they were always right there in the midst of whatever was going on in WWE. They were always right at the top of the list as far as the championship pictures and things like that. And obviously, they were the center of the Attitude Era. I mean, you had DX, you had Stone Cold, and you had The Rock. That was the Attitude Era. Everything pretty much revolved around those guys, and you can't deny the influence that they've had on the current generation of superstars. And moving on to number 2, of course, along the same lines as DX, is the NWO. Again, started with members of the Clique. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, added Hulk Hogan, which completely kind of changed the game in the wrestling business at that time, and just ruled WCW, and that's what ultimately led WCW to beating the WWE in ratings for 83 straight weeks. Was people tuning in to see what the NWO was going to do next. And I don't think you can deny the influence that they've had on the current generation, especially groups like the Bullet Club, who have taken elements from the NWO but have put their own spin on it, and again, like I said, have avoided some of the pitfalls that ultimately led to the demise of the NWO. But it was at the time was completely revolutionary. Now, of course, the NWO was influenced by an earlier invasion angle that played out in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Of course, to this day, Eric Bischoff denies that, but it's Bischoff. So, but and number 1 on my list, I don't think anybody could ever argue that the greatest faction in the history of pro wrestling is the Four Horsemen. Really the first 3 incarnations of the Horsemen, which was Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and Ole Anderson. And of course, Ole was replaced by Lex Luger, and Lex Luger was eventually replaced by Barry Windham to create what most people think was probably the most powerful group of horsemen that there was. Of course, that's the group that held every major championship in the NWA, the world title with Ric Flair, the U.S. title with Barry Windham, and the tag team titles with Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. To make a top 10 factions list and not have the Four Horsemen at number 1, to me is just completely ridiculous. Like I said, I think the list that WWE put out was a bit insulting to wrestling fans. I think it was kind of a slap in the face to some of those prior factions, and maybe I'm wrong. It's business. Let's just put it that way. It's WWE stroking their own ego. And it's a business, and I'm sure, Ric Flair understands that, Michael Hayes understands that, Shawn Michaels understands that, any of these guys that, were put further down on the list behind the Shield, they understand it's business, it's WWE trying to put their, you know, put their homegrown guys over and you know, make them the tops in the world. But I honestly, if you look online, fans aren't buying it, and I'm not buying it. You know, I don't have an issue with the Shield. I actually like the Shield. I like the things that they've done. I liked the Shield when they first debuted on the main roster. I liked the angles that they were put in. I liked the, you know, the storylines that they were given. I liked the fact that they were just kind of, you know, kind of ran roughshod over everybody. It had some of those elements from the NWO. It had some of the elements from the Four Horsemen and from DX and the Nexus and things like that. But to declare them the #1 faction of all time in wrestling is, you know, premature at this point, because they haven't been around all that long. And like I said, just kind of insulting, kind of a slap in the face. You know, because I mean, for the WWE factions that they included on their list, I mean, you know, I like the Undisputed Era. I actually liked the Nexus. I loved Evolution. I thought that was kind of a great successor to the Horsemen. But you know, it's just, I don't know. Like I said, the best word I can come up with for it is insulting. So that's pretty much all I got for this week. Like I said, I know it was kind of a short episode here, but let me know what you guys think. What do you think of my list? Did I leave somebody out that you think should have been in there? Should somebody have been higher? Should somebody have been lower? Maybe you don't think that the Horsemen are the greatest of all time when it comes to factions. Who do you think should be #1? So yeah, like I said, hope you're enjoying the podcast. Hope everybody's checking it out on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. And hope everybody's following on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Just go to any one of those, search Catch, Hook, Shoot. You'll be able to find the show. And if you want to shoot me an email, got any questions, comments, something you'd like me to talk about on the show, it's catchhookshoot@gmail.com. I will be back next week with a full episode again. Hope everybody who was at All Enter Starcast is feeling all right and doesn't have whatever this plague is that I seem to have come down with. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be trying to cover some more stuff in future episodes. I know I talk predominantly about WWE because it is the biggest product out there, but I am going to be getting more into the independents. At least going to try to. I'm going to try to dedicate some more time to catching up on things like Impact, Ring of Honor, MLW, Lucha Underground, New Japan, things like that. I'm going to try to make the show a little bit more well-rounded, so that it doesn't just cater to the WWE universe, you know, because I've said many times, I am a pro wrestling fan. I am not just a WWE fan. And, you know, I want to get more in depth with what's going on in the indies. I know MLW just had their War Games event this past week. That's definitely something I want to check out once it's posted on YouTube. I don't get beIN Sports, so I don't get to see their regular television show, but I know they do post the episodes on YouTube, so I plan on spending some time catching up with that. Yeah, Lucha Underground, I also don't currently get El Rey, so that's something I'm going to have to catch up with online as well. I know those episodes are months, you know, old at this point, but you know, I was a huge fan of Lucha Underground when I did get the El Rey channel, so I would love to be able to get back into it. I know they kind of do just kind of highlights on YouTube, so at this point that's probably my best bet, other than buying the individual episodes on like Amazon Prime or iTunes, something like that. And yeah, New Japan, again, I don't get Access TV. The TV that I get sucks, quite honestly. I get I get all the WWE programming, obviously, and I get I get Impact. So Ring of Honor I have to catch on the Fight app. MLW, like I said, I'll have to catch on YouTube, and Lucha Underground and New Japan, I just kind of have to get highlights where I can, because I know everybody has their own streaming services now and stuff, but, you know, hey, I'm a one-man show here, and can't afford to get every single streaming service that's out there, at least not at the moment, but, you know, hopefully at some point I'll be able to do that. But, yeah, I am going to try to make this a little bit more well-rounded, not so WWE-centric. WWE, obviously, is still going to be a good chunk of the show because they are the biggest show in town, biggest show in the world, as a matter of fact. But going to try to get some more content for the fans that aren't so big on WWE, that do pay more attention to the indies, because indie wrestling right now is as hot as it's ever been. Pro wrestling in general is as hot as it's ever been. It is a great time to be a professional wrestling fan. So I'm going to try my best to, like I said, cater more to wrestling fans like myself, not just WWE fans. So again, hope you guys are enjoying the show. Hope everybody's having a good week, and I will be back with a new episode next Sunday, and hopefully it'll be a little bit, I'll be back to 100% and have the video posted as well, and it'll be a little bit longer episode next time. But for now, I'm going to sign off. So hope everybody has a good week, and I'll talk to you guys soon.